Still on the equations, but the equations now have fraction exponents. But it still stays the same principle as when you have x squared plus x minus 2 equal to 0. Nobody can misunderstand that that's a quadratic equation, but there's certain things that you've got to realize are still going on even if there's fraction exponents. It's always got to be descending powers of x, which it was when it was a 2 and a 1, and this is x to the power 0. It's still the same thing. So basically, this is always going to be half of that, x to the power of 1, which stays the same principle if it's powers of fractions. So if the fraction is a half, is half of a half a quarter? Do you see that? So it's not that you've got to break the quarter down into eighths and I don't know what you want to do with it. You still have to realize this is still a quadratic equation going with descending powers of x, although the descending powers is not 2 and 1 and 0 anymore. It's a half, a quarter, and 0. It's the same principle, which you do old school with coefficients of 1 and coefficient of 2, giving you the factors that are 1 times 1 and 1 times 2. Then we cross multiply to get to 1, cross multiply to get to 2. And out of that we must get positive 1, which will be negative, positive, negative, positive. So there are my two brackets, which are not now going to be x something, x something. It's going to be x to the quarter. This one was always the one standing there because x times x gives x squared. And x to the quarter times x to the quarter will give me x to the half. Why? Because when you multiply, you add exponents. So a quarter plus a quarter is 2 quarters, which is a half. Okay, and then the rest. So it will be 1 minus 1, 1 minus 1, and 1 plus 2 equal to 0. Are you all with me?
Yes, ma'am.
So now we've got to solve the equation, because remember, when two things are timed and the answer is 0, one of those two things should be 0. The principle is, that's the reason why we always get it equal to 0, and factorize, meaning they've got to be multiplied. The main thing behind this from grade 9 and 10 is when you've got 0 and it's a product of two things. The only way that two things can be timed and give me an answer of 0 is if one of them was 0. One of them has to be 0 to give a product of 0. That's the only way. So therefore either A must be 0 or B must be 0. But if you have something like A times B equal to 6, does that mean one of them has to be 6? No. That's the reason why always we go for equal to 0, getting factors and then knowing that those two factors have each got to be equal to 0. So this one will be x to the half, and now you can skip that step of saying minus 1 equals 0, just make it equal to 1. And x to the quarter equal to negative 2. Do you see anything suspicious here? That's it. Even root. Can never ever give me a negative answer, and if you can see it and immediately tell me no solution, fine. If you didn't see it, you were going to say to the power 4, to the power 4, and it looks like it's working. That's why you've got to test your answers. But if you did see it's no solution, you've got to know why. Because it's an even, a fourth root. Meaning a fourth root of something can never be an equal answer to negative something. That's why. If you did get an answer, tested it, it wouldn't be a solution either. For this one then, no problems that I can see. Even, does it have to be plus minus?
No.
This is not even. The top means that it's an even exponent. The value of a quarter, is a quarter an even fraction or is it an uneven fraction? The numerator, the denominator, makes, the numerator. The numerator makes that it's even or odd. So if the numerator is 1, odd means that it's not even. So So we have x. Why did I put the 4 there? I don't know. Okay. To get the 4 away, you've got to power 4. Which will give me x is equal to 1. I'm glad nobody says 4. If you tested it and you thought for a minute maybe it's plus minus, test the minus. Put in there 1 to the half, 1 to the quarter, minus that, it should give you 0. If you test negative 1, it won't work. Either it's going to give you a completely not 0 answer, or it's going to give you something that's error on your calculator. Then you know it's only the plus. Unfortunately, that's the way that I've told you how to get more comfortable with these sums. The moment that you see exponents that are fractions, test your answers. Then you can be more sure of your answers. Same thing happening here. Now we're going to go quicker with factors of 1 and factors of 2, which are 1 and 1 and 1 times 2. At the top, at the bottom. Cross multiplication, having to give me negative 3 in the middle. Both have to be negative. So there are my spy language crypt notes. So I know that in those two brackets, I'm going to have a 1 and a minus 1. And I'm going to have a 1 and a minus 2. But in these brackets must be a x to the power 4. That's actually your clue. Because what times what gives me x to the half? It is x to the quarter times x to the quarter. Because when I time them, I add a quarter and it gives me 2 quarters, which is a half. So x to the quarter is equal to 1. X to the quarter is equal to 2. And remember your or in between, please. I missed it out over here. There's got to be a or in between. How do I solve this? Anything, if you did go and test yourself and check it out, you would have not had any problems. It's not even, so you shouldn't have plus minus. It's even, so it shouldn't be minus, and it isn't, so no problem. How would I solve that then? To the exponent of 4, to the exponent of 4, to the exponent of 4, to the exponent of 4. So the answer would be x equal to 1, and that one would be x equal to 16. Done. How many marks for such a sum? 2. Most probably the factorizing is worth 2 marks. And maybe 1 for each, so it should be 4 marks, roundabout. How many of these sums in a question paper? 2. Maximum 2. That's going to be with fraction exponents. 1, and there doesn't even have to be 1. So why do we spend so much time? Otherwise, how would you know how to use it if it did come to pass? Yes. Okay, so the next question, what do I do? Roots as to a fraction exponent, which is a half, plus 4 equal to 0. So we have 1, that's 1 times 1, and 4, it can be 2 times 2 or 1 times 4. We cross multiply, I need to get to negative 5, which will be for both negatives, bracket 1, bracket 2. You see the pattern going here again. So we have the fractions, or the brackets that's got to have what in them? X to the half times x to the half. That gives it away. And it's half of that. This was 1. So I have x to the half times x to the half. When you times, you add exponents. And a half plus a half is 1. These factors then will be 1 minus 1. So 1 minus 1 and 1 minus 4. If you want to put the 1 there, it's fine. If you don't want to put the 1 there, it's also fine. We've got our 2 answers we now spoke about. 2 things timed and answer 0, then either this is 0 or that is 0. So x to the half has got to be 1 then, or x to the half is equal to 4. Should there be pluses and minuses? No, because it's an odd exponent. Can there be a negative? No, because it's an even root size. So we have to go and put it to the power of 2. And the answer for that would be x is equal to 1. This one also we express to the power of 2. And the answer should be 16.